or not to smoke? That is the question. If you happen to read the Cannabis and Industrial Hemp Control and Licensing Bill of 2022, an act which authorizes a commission to review and approve license applications, develop a marketing strategy for cannabis, approve license for restaurants to serve the same, and act as a supervisory board for this mass sale of this drug, you would think this was a documentation of the activities of one of the major gangs. The reality is, it is not. It's the most recent bill that was tabled in the National Assembly. Today, in this week's feature, we take a closer look at the controversial bill. Hello, I am Tessa Habet. This feature is brought to you by Pink Boutique. Get ready for summer with Pink Boutique, where you can get a variety of items from toys and children's clothes to graduation dresses, shoes, blouses, handbags, swimsuits, and jewelry for the grown and sophisticated. Whether you're going to the Keys for a relaxing day on the beach or having dinner at a fancy restaurant, Pink Boutique has got you covered. Pink Boutique is located at 2.5 miles on the Philip Golson Highway. You can keep up with promotions and sales on their Facebook or Instagram pages at Pink Boutique Belize or call at 223-1552. Marijuana. At low doses, increases the serotonin levels in its youngest users, making one very calm, forcing minds and bodies to act in direct opposition to natural instinct at a time when minds are agile and bodies energized.
This bill and this issue of cannabis and industrial hemp is a controversial issue in our society. The government of Belize is in full support of the development of this industry under strict regulatory measures. We fully respect those who have strong differences on the issue, but around the world, we can see that there is a movement certainly inclined in favor of this type of industry. Some say Belize is too far behind the curve, but this is an attempt, Madam President, to expand the industries and sectors for employment in our country.
As a student and as the liaison officer of the Student Council and a young citizen of Belize, I believe that passing the marijuana bill is not the safest option for Belize currently, because we are made up of a population of more than 50% of young people, and with young people, they will say yes, but they do not know the side effects of marijuana, what it could cause, the devastating nature and addictive nature of marijuana. And I think it is important for the government or for people to be taught about marijuana and everything with it before they pass a bill to make it legal, so that people are prepared for what's gonna happen.
I started smoking marijuana at a very young age, at 12 years old, back in the 1960s, when it was cool and when it was fun, and when it was just a party. And however, and that's what it was for me in the beginning. It was cool and it was okay, and it was just a little party. And we smoked a little bit of marijuana. And that wasn't the issue. What the issue is what happens after the marijuana wears off, after we start partying.
I am not in support of the legalization of marijuana in Belize. However, I must also state that it's imperative for parents to make sure that they are aware what is it that marijuana can cause on their children, what it can cause on their families, and at what it will cause on the nation as a whole. We know that approximately 10% of people who use marijuana may develop what is called a marijuana use disorder, which is problems with their health, school, friendships, family, or other conflicts of life.
Every holder of a restaurant license who desires to sell cannabis and infuse cannabis food and drinks for consumption in a consumption lounge shall apply in writing for a restaurant consumption lounge license.
For youths at such a young age, when their brain is still developing, all the hormones going through their bodies, and so to add marijuana to that, and it will be much more easily accessible if legalized. So I think we're not thinking as a society about our youths and our younger population.
As the social media manager of St. Catherine Academy, I guess it is my job to be well in tune with what's in today. And I find that a lot of people my age think smoking, especially marijuana, is cool, but they don't realize that it is harmful to our development, especially to our brains, and that is the foundation of human growth. The average human being doesn't fully develop until about the age of 29, but if this bill passed, it will give youths easier access to these addictive drugs, and marijuana especially is a gateway drug, which can lead to more serious addictions to other more harmful drugs. And I don't believe it's the right move.
The elements around it. It's the drug dealers, it's the alcoholics, it's the substance abuse that's wrapped all around it. Because what happened for me was when I started smoking marijuana, which we called in those days, and it still can be called the same, marijuana is a gateway drug.
We have had situations with a few students, very smart students, very smart, doing absolutely performing well at school, and they got involved with the use and consumption of marijuana. These students, their grades gradually started to drop. They started to become more absent at school. Some of them we managed to salvage. Some of those students who managed to graduate, but with very close supervision and monitor on the part of the school, especially the counselors and the vice principal of student affairs. However, we were not able to save all of them. And I do recall this student who became so involved with the drug that he ended up dropping out of school, getting more involved with drugs, and then he became even a peddler at a very young age. He started to peddle and to sell drugs. It didn't take too long when he became involved also with the gangs, and then later on he was killed.
If you look at the bill, you have all these supposedly checks and balances, but the practicality of it is something different. It's something different, and it will just be a matter of time. It will just be a matter of time when really the people, the investors in this industry, this new industry, will be the people who have the money to invest in it, and the consumers will be the most vulnerable part of the populace. And we're talking about the economically disadvantaged people, the most vulnerable, the young people. In the end, those are people are the ones who will be the consumers, And as Pope Francis has rightly said, no, it is a matter of not looking at industries as how much money it's going to bring to the coffers, even though the industries may be immoral. So we are putting money over the future of our nation.
I think where the problem comes in, for most of us, would be with the potential impact it may have on our people, especially our younger population. I know that the legal age to be able to purchase it and use it will be 21. But if there's one thing that Belize is not well known for, Madam President, I think it is policing. I think we've always had a poor administrative structures. We see it across the board. And so I think that is where I personally struggle with this bill.
Subclause 8, every person who desires to store, market, and otherwise sell cannabis shall apply in writing to the Commission for a dispensary license. That requires a detailed business plan, and it sets out in full all the criteria that must be complied with. There are 9 criteria that must be complied with as a part of the business plan to be put before the Commission.
I believe it's endangering a lot of youth, and we already have serious issues. They say that some of the income from the marijuana nurseries that they plan to have will go to rehabilitation centers, meaning they already predict that this will cause severe addictions and affect people. So I think right now they should find other solutions to stop drug addictions in Belize, especially in youth, instead of giving them the opportunity to start one.
I got addicted to marijuana when I smoked marijuana, and then after that, along came cocaine and alcohol, and that's when the real problems arose, and my life became very intolerable, very unmanageable, and I wasn't able to stop. I was not only addicted to marijuana for over 22 years, I was also addicted to cocaine and alcohol and lots of other drugs. No need to mention them, but we all know what they are. But my addiction took me to a place in my life where I almost lost my family. I almost lost my job. I lost my self-esteem. I lost my my hope to live. And all that happened because I just wanted to smoke a little marijuana.
I think that, especially when it comes to our young people, I think that we should maybe try to stay away from experiments that can turn out badly. And I think that this may be one of them. One of the things that I think we're doing here, and I mean, I'm not naive to say that, or to think that this is not, that there's not pervasive use of marijuana in Belize already. But to me, this makes it mainstream. What we're doing here makes it mainstream. And I think that it will be a lot more accessible to young people, those under 21 who we don't want to be using it. It can lead to problems, and we already have an overburden. We already are overburdened with many of our social problems. It's in the schools, in the communities. And so the question I have on the top of my mind now, Madam President, is who really is this bill for? We're not doing it for exporting. This is for local consumption. I had specifically asked that question when we had met with the minister. So it's really to get our people high. I mean, we're going to get high on our own stuff. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about.
And personally speaking, I'm an educator and I deal with young minds. And already we have issues, maybe not so much with the girls, but especially with our boys, that there's less boys attending high school. There are less boys getting educated. And that, for me, the cry is about our young people that will be affected. Teenager, everybody want to look out to how can I get away from, because they claim that the marijuana makes you feel good and whatnot. And so young people will start to experiment on it at a younger age.
For the commercial growing of cannabis plants, an application has to be made to the Commission for a license. What is important, Madam President and members of the Senate, is Clause 3, which sets out that the Commission shall grant a license if the applicant is 21 years and older. At least 30% of the shareholders are the citizens of Belize. So it is important that there be Belizean participation in this new growth industry. It goes on to provide, Madam President, that the applicant, to the satisfaction of the Commission, provides information required in subsection 2, which sets out all the things that must be set out. And after conducting a background and Interpol check, the applicant and all interested parties do not have a criminal record. So, Madam President, it is ensuring, hopefully, that only fit and proper persons can be involved in this industry.
I came to the island of San Pedro back in October of 2021 and helped Father Eduardo and the St. Francis Sober Living Center open as the very first sober living in San Pedro, which is terribly needed for this part of the country. We opened up a sober living center, and where we came to help, I came to help them open up the St. Francis Sober Living Center. And we found our very first client. His name was Ricky Bush. And this is a picture of Ricky right here. Ricky Bush, a really great guy. He wanted to get sober. We wanted to help him. We brought him into the house and we gave him a place to live. We gave him a purpose. We gave him an opportunity to get his life back together. And he did get some sobriety, and he got a purpose. He got sobriety, he got a place to live, he got some food in his stomach, he got some fresh, clean clothes on his back, and we had a job lined up for him. Everything was just right. And Ricky, unfortunately, Ricky made some poor decisions and went back to using drugs and smoking marijuana. And within a month, Ricky Bush passed away in the hospital with Father Eduardo and Father Scott at his side.
The Commission shall impose as a condition of every license issued under this part that the licensed activity shall not take place within a mile of an educational institution or a residential area. That was introduced after consultation, Madam President, seeking to try to keep this type of activity away from persons under 21.
It is sad when we see these situations happening to our youth. When we know what are the long and even the short-term effects it will have on our generation. Yet, there is consideration on the part of our government to even think about passing a bill to legalize something that is a detriment to our youth and a detriment to our families, and of course to our nation as a whole.
I think that the state had literally defied the church That's what I believe, because when the state adopt these laws that are alien to this country, in no way, shape, or form a third world country could live and abide by laws coming from a first world country and give the burden to the church. Because what is happening today, that children are having too much rights without responsibility, so there's not an equilibrium. And all these laws are fostered by the state, and when crime has escalated because of it, and the onus is on the state that are thrown that on the church and expect the church with its limited resources to clear up its mess. So there is a breakdown in the family because of the laws instituted by the state.
Perhaps no matter how many consultations are held, insofar as the church is concerned, this is not the direction in which we should be going at this time, when we heard earlier from this morning that we now have a robust economy and the economy is growing and things are looking up. The government mentioned that other countries have gone in this direction. I want to also remind us that countries have gone in this direction based on not only legislation, but based on the fact. And if we do our homework, they went to the people. And they went to the people in a referendum. It is understood, based on the legality of things, that we can go to the House of Representatives because we have the numbers, or we can go to the Senate because we have the numbers. But one sometimes have to be very careful of that. There are some things, and I believe this is one of them, where perhaps we need to go directly to the people.
This is a demon that's facing us right in our face, and we will allow this to happen. And this is not acceptable in my view. God is not going to be happy with us, because we human beings don't know how to control whatever gift God has given us. And I know that it will get out of hand in terms of the use of it. And so it's going to be so free for our students at their disposal, and I'm concerned about the generation and the future of our country.
We look at, for example, liquor licensing, and we know that some of these things should not be in certain areas. But when we look around the city, for example, we see that they are near schools, near churches. And so that's another concern, the monitoring or the enforcement of these provisions, Madam President, because we've been there, done that, and we've seen where it has not worked the way it should have worked. And so I hope that, again, as we take some time to review or to take a second look at this matter, we will try to see how we can better ensure that the protection we are trying to give to our students or to our children is really and truly there.
In terms of the bill itself, there has been wide divisions in relation to whether or not there should be support or opposition for the bill. That division also comes within our own caucus. Our own caucus had varying opinions in relation to what our presentation should be about this particular motion. And if it is that we need to take time for there to be further public discussions, further consultations, even though it may not make one iota of a difference to change anybody's mind, that is democracy. It is the difficulty of democracy to say that we live in a society that have differing views. And I may not be able to convince you, but I must respect the fact that you have an opinion and that your persons who you represent need to be heard and your position needs to be listened to.
As I appeal to reason, Madam President, when we talk about this being a cash-only industry, interesting, a cash-only industry. Why? And we know why. We know why. The business people know why. The representative is sitting right here. They know that we cannot, we ought not, and we should not be dealing with that kind of money within the banking sector. We know that. And how it will affect us adversely as a country if we do so.
Their number one concern is that the industry would somehow pose some indirect or direct threat to our financial system. If that came to pass in any way, that there would be some pulling or some cease and desist of the industry. So the question then became, then what is the clarity conveyed to investors if everything has to be shut down because of some crisis regarding the financial aspect? Then who bears losses? Is it investors' risks? How will employees' use be able to be handled by employers? Will they be able to use products and then come to work? Will they be able to use within a certain period of driving in terms of on the motorways? We know that's been an issue for countries who have done this in other jurisdictions. We know the challenges we've had with driving under the influence and road traffic accidents, I think still being one of the top 3 reasons for death in Belize even today. Also, just as poignantly, the bill speaks to outlets not being near schools and near residential areas, which again relates to several of the regulation already in place for alcohol and the lack of ability to enforce that. But then the question also became, then does that mean that you will not be able to grow or apply for a license to cultivate if you are a resident in a city, in a municipality, in a village? You will then be forced to secure land outside to comply with the law of making sure you're not. These are the questions, and perhaps if we had been consulted directly, we could have gotten the answers before. The third point on the consultation, and again here in terms of how consultation was defined, I'm being asked to ask, Ministry of Agriculture, Bell Trade, DFC, Baja, Chamber, Bureau of Standards, were these groups directly consulted? Did they take a position? Is that available for public discernment? That is one of the issues in terms of how do we make sure everybody who has weighed in can help to make the bill as strong as it needs to be, because I think that is certainly the joint position here. We all want this to be as strong as it needs to be. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, that's it. In terms of access to capital and credit to Belizeans who are marginalized but interested in tapping into this, especially with the 30% threshold, is that going to be something offered to Belizeans to make sure that they can meet that 30% threshold and mitigate against significant dependence on foreign direct investment? 6, and I think Senator Pitts used the term, I don't know if this is appropriate, but certainly I'll repeat it, the need that you have to be 21 to get a card, but right now the law says it's decriminalized at age 18. So for those 3 years, is that is it a window that either needs to be closed or opened further? The alacrity with which this bill has gone through different stages. Our sector has seen some of the bills, unfortunately, take a decade, some of them more, unfortunately. So how do we make sure that with the bar set now at this rate, and to Senator Pitts' point, other areas that can also be considered new growth, mariculture, other opportunities within the blue economy space, how do we make sure that those are also given the similar attention and prioritization so that it can move through quickly? The minister also shared with us, Madam President, that we already have about 150 people growing marijuana in Belize, and that we need a mere percentage of that. So will there be like a quota set up, or is this first come, first served? There's questions in terms of if we already have 150 people growing this, and I think the comment was even made, you know, this is not throw a seed and grow up on the ground. There's an art to it, there's a science to it. How do we make sure that access is given and screened and everything to, again, make sure that who this should benefit is given access to it? If minded to do a referendum, the sector calls out that we have 2 voting opportunities coming up in the near future, the village council elections and the municipal elections. These are questions that we can put to voters at those 2 polls within the year. So to look at that in terms of considering it as standalone costs for a referendum.
And so I think we need to think about the future generations and our children and how this will impact them, because we're not looking at it from that standpoint. It's more about the revenue and the finances and the money, and who really will gain, from all that. And so I think it doesn't outweigh that good. The revenue doesn't outweigh the problems that it will cause in our society.
As a citizen of Belize and as a Mercy student, it's very important for me to know how the country works, how the decisions are made, and to experience it firsthand, how these senators speak to one another, make these decisions, and come to agreements and form solutions for our country and how it's run. So it was a really good experience for me. Yeah.
I'm a certified substance abuse counselor from Los Angeles, California. And I'm in the sober living business, helping Father Eduardo and Saul and a few other guys here on the island open St. Francis Sober Living Center in San Pedro. And if you do know somebody that has a drug addiction or an alcohol problem, they can contact Saul, or they can contact Father Eduardo at the San Pedro Roman Catholic Church, or they can call me, and my number is I'm connected to WhatsApp. It's a United States number. It's 909-227-1172.
According to our legislators, we have until April 11th to send in recommendations. 11th of April, Good Friday, is a significant date as it is the feast of Saint Stanislaus, a noble whose father was a senator and whom many believed was destined for public life before he became a priest. Our hope is found in the social partners' no vote, the opposition abstaining from the vote, thereby causing only PUP to support this bill, with 6 yeses in a Senate that comprises 30 members. We are hopeful that our government would not want to go at it alone on such a controversial issue. But let's see. We will continue to pray fervently for our leaders as we ought that they may lead us with wisdom and prudence. And that's our story. Thanks for watching. For this and more feature stories, you can follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or view on Guadalupe Media Channel 96 on CCV or Channel 64 on CBC. You can also tune in on the radio in your car, home, or office at 101.9 FM, and please be sure to download the Guadalupe Media radio app from Google Play or the App Store. Our Blessed Mother, lead us to Jesus.